Welcome back to another action figure obsession video, and this is where the obsession really digs in. One of my followers, Dr. Witty Banter, on comment on one of my last videos in the action figure obsession series, mentioned that he somehow had missed out on the Spider-Man clone saga in the comic books. Now, I recommended to him a really good video about the Spider-Man clone saga on the Owen Likes Comics channel, so just do a search for Owen Likes Comics Spider-Man Clone Saga, and that should come right up, or maybe I will not be lazy and actually put a link in the description. You can take a look there and see if I remember to do that. But that's a very good summation of the Spider-Man Clone Saga, which people, as Owen points out, think about the Clone Saga as being a 1990s phenomenon, but it actually began in 1973, after the death of Gwen Stacy, when this guy, the Jackal, right here in the middle, who was a college professor teaching both Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy, the Jackal was secretly in love with Gwen Stacy and was shattered by her death at the hands of the Green Goblin, and so he cloned her, and he also cloned Peter Parker, and forced Peter Parker to face off against his own clone in a battle to the death, which ended, I think, 1974 or 1975. And then in the 90s, they brought it back. It turned out that the clone, now known as Ben Reilly, had never actually died, but had gone on the road and had his own whole life, and eventually developed his own superhero identity, not as Spider-Man, but as the Scarlet Spider. And so we have here a good representation. Certainly not all of the Clone Saga-related characters that Marvel Legends have done, but a good number of them. So the story starts with, and then everybody falls over. Okay, that's just the hazard of having this many clones running around, right? The story starts with the Jackal, and he, among other things, he originally hired the Punisher. He was the reason for the very first appearance of the Punisher in the comics. When the Jackal hired the Punisher to kill Spider-Man, the Punisher did not do so because he wasn't as bad as I guess the Jackal assumed that he was, and then the Punisher went on to have his own half-century of storytelling life, and still going today. So the Jackal cloned Gwen Stacy because he was in love with her. It was very there were some very risque panels for the mid-70s in showing her being cloned and reborn coming out of her birthing tube. And then he cloned Peter Parker, and that clone became Ben Reilly, whose first superhero costume was this one here. This is the Scarlet Spider costume. Oh, everybody's going to fall over in this video a lot. I apologize for that. So the Scarlet Spider, now this is the Scarlet Spider from about 10 years ago, the Hasbro Marvel Legends Scarlet Spider from about 10 years ago. They did another one, an update of that. Let's see, which one is it? Because I had so many of that one. I actually have 3. Where's the third one? Oh, here he is. I have 3 of the Sandman Build-A-Figure Wave. Was it Sandman Build-A-Figure Wave? I feel like it was. Scarlet Spider figures, and they were built on the Pizza Spider-Man body, so their articulation doesn't quite hold up as well as the Renew Your Vows body, which is what the updated Scarlet Spider is built on from a couple of years ago. But design-wise, and you can see here the newer one is a little taller than the older one, but design-wise, I actually prefer the look of the older Scarlet Spider in Marvel Legends. I like, even though he didn't have the white outline or the black outline around his eyes in the comics for the most part, I like it. I like how it looks on this figure. I think it's a very Steve Ditko looking take on the Scarlet Spider, whereas this one is much truer to the 90s aesthetic with the wild shape of the eye lenses, and overall this is a better body. There's no question about that. But it's not my favorite. Not my favorite at all. By the way, the comic book that you see here in the background I used to have all the Clone Saga comics, actually going all the way back to 1973. Purged those, unfortunately, at one point. But this is the issue where, and spoilers for the Clone Saga all the way through this. If you don't want to have it spoiled, if you want to go read it, God love you and God help you. But there will be spoilers from here on out. There probably already have been some. I apologize for that. This is the issue. It's infamous for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's the issue where Peter Parker, the Peter Parker who survived the original Clone Saga while Ben Reilly supposedly died, this is the issue where they do a DNA test and Ben Reilly finds out he is actually the real Peter Parker, and that the Peter Parker that we had been reading about for 20 years in the comics had actually always just been a clone. And Peter is so upset about this that, and this is probably the most controversial thing about this issue, not the switcheroo of Peter and Ben as which one is the real one and which one is the clone, but rather that Mary Jane, who was pregnant at the time, gets backhanded by Peter Parker in a fit of rage and thrown across the room. Yes, he smacks his pregnant wife and knocks her across the room with his superpowers. So he joins the Hank Pym Wife Beater Club in this issue of Spectacular Spider-Man. Okay, so we got our, now in sort of chronologically trying to explain the Clone Saga, we have our, there's, the introduction of the Scarlet Spider in this costume here, and eventually another villain comes along called Kane, right here. That is Kane Parker, as he's known now. And he was a failed clone of Spider-Man that never quite made the cut. And he was originally depicted as kind of a supervillain. He committed a bunch of murders. You'll see that the subtitle of this comic is The Trial of Peter Parker. Peter Parker was being put on trial for the murders that were actually committed by Kane, but the cloning process screwed him up pretty bad, which is one of the reasons why his body is much more muscular. But he was tormented by the suffering that the clone process made him go through. I apologize. I know this looks terrible, but hopefully at least I can make the story interesting. Kane later became a hero during one of Ben Reilly's many deaths. And this is also Kane Parker right here. This is Kane Parker as the Scarlet Spider. He took over the mantle of the Scarlet Spider from Ben Reilly and became kind of a darker, grittier superhero who, in a very gritty superhero kind of touch, had Wolverine-like sort of bone claw things that jutted out from his hands. So this is Kane over here. And over here, we'll put Kane, the other Kane. Oops. There's another body back there, too. Who's that? Oh, okay. So, yeah, it all originally started, that battle in Spider-Man. There we go. There we go. God love you for sticking with this, because, boy, I sure was unprepared. But it was the obsession that led me here, because I'm obsessed with the Clone Saga, and I couldn't just let it lie when Dr. Witty Banter made the comment about not knowing about the Clone Saga. I mean, it all started with Peter and Ben fighting each other to the death in Amazing Spider-Man 149, and one of the reasons why I love this 2020 Wave 1 Retro Spider-Man superposable Spider-Man figure that came out again in 2020 is because it looks exactly like Spider-Man looked in those comics. The eyes, the color of the costume, just all of it. These are my two, Peter and Ben from Spider-Man 149. So far in our tale here, we have the two Kanes, the good guy and the bad guy Kane. We have the Scarlet Spider, and I think there was only really of this design. I don't think there were multiple guys of him running around. I just like the character so much that I buy it anytime I find it at a reasonable price. Later on, Peter Parker and Mary Jane reconciled and had a baby, and that's a whole other story. And Peter lost his spider powers, and Ben Reilly, the Scarlet Spider, became the Sensational Spider-Man, and that's the costume that Ben Reilly wore when he was the Sensational Spider-Man. And I have a couple of different masks to choose from on that one. One of these heads, I think, came from a Pizza Spider-Man. So that's the more 90s style eyes on the right, and then the more traditional 70s, 80s style eyes on the left. And the one on the left actually represents the artwork of Dan Jurgens, who introduced the Sensational Spider-Man in Sensational Spider-Man number 0, and then I think he drew and wrote 1 through 6, and he drew the eyes more like that, and then later artists drew them a little bit more bug-eyed in the more 90s style. And as a... this is also the Pizza Spider-Man version of the Sensational Spider-Man. Not the greatest figure. The Pizza Spider-Man body, again, I'll say it again, is a bit outdated and has almost obsolete, you would say. But I do like the blue on that one. You see that how it has that almost French blue. I really dig that. I wish that blue had been used on the other two, the updated Sensational Spider-Man. And then another aside, and this is a kit bash that I did. This Sensational Spider-Man came out in 2022 in the second wave of the retro Spider-Man series. And what I did was I took the hands and the head that came with the Pizza Spider-Man body version of the Sensational Spider-Man suit, and I put them on, because you were able to make either Spider-Carnage from the animated series or the Ben Reilly Sensational Spider-Man, and I used the parts from that to make the Spider-Carnage from the original from the animated series, who was Ben Reilly, if I recall correctly, on the animated series. And it's amazing, these guys stand up great on the shelves, and then I bring them over here, and they're falling down left and right. But yeah, so this is Spider-Carnage from towards the end of Spider-Man the animated series in the 90s, and I guess I would put him back here with the other Ben Reileys, since those are all three of the ones on the right there are the 2022 retro Sensational Spider-Man, and then the one on the left is the Pizza Spider-Man Ben Reilly, which I think was from, I want to say, yeah, I just made that noise. Sorry about that. I think that one was from the one on the left. I think he came out in 2015 or 2016. At the time, I was just so happy to have a Ben Reilly figure. It was out of this world. And then let's wrap up the Ben Reilly narrative, because I don't have the character that he became after this. But this is Spider-Man Beyond. And this is probably one of the weirdest Hasbro Marvel Legends ever, because the shape of his head is so strange. You see the way the bug eyes just And I love the costume. I love the off-center asymmetrical chest emblem and the black and red of it. I always like a black and red Spider-Man more than the red and blue, although I do like the classic red and blue, but oftentimes we don't get a classic red and blue. We get a too dark of a blue, or as with these guys, the ones on the right here, the three on the right, a little too purpley. But Spider-Man Beyond, Ben Reilly goes to work for the Beyond Corporation, which of course has, evil intent. And for a little while, he was able to be happy. Ben Reilly has died and come back, I think, at least 4 times now since 1973. But this actual run of comics, where it was the adventures of Ben Reilly as Spider-Man working for the Beyond Corporation, they were wonderful. They were really, really good. I don't remember if it was Dan Slott that wrote those. I think it was. I think Dan Slott was the last guy who was actually capable of writing halfway decent Superman stories, or Spider-Man stories in the comics. But, here's an action figure obsession. I can't just let them stay on the table. Got to pick them back up. Sorry about that. This is a whole lot of knocking stuff over and picking it back up, isn't it? This is what you came for. All right, I'm just trying to find a way to get this guy to stand up, and nobody wants to help him. There we go. All right. So, there's not a whole lot more to tell you. After he was Spider-Man Beyond, he was in a big battle and was once again seemingly killed, but brought back from the dead as a character called Chasm, C-H-A-S-M. And I think he's still around to some degree or another, but I really haven't kept up with it. There is a Marvel Legends Chasm figure, which I do not have. I think I bought it and then got rid of it because I really didn't like it. But I do love Ben Reilly, so I kind of regret getting rid of that. But at the end of the day, the Clone Saga always centered on these three people, the Jackal, Peter Parker, and Gwen Stacy. Jackal's obsession with Gwen Stacy, who he cloned, and, you know, her I think in continuity her clone may still be out there somewhere. Like, her and Peter just kind of came to realize that, you know, she had her own life and she wasn't the original Gwen Stacy, but, you know, she deserved to go out and live a life of her own. That's the last thing I remember. So if anything happened to Gwen Stacy after that, feel free to correct me in the comments. But you know, it started out with just those three people, Pete and Gwen, in love in college, and their college professor became obsessed with her, and then she died, and he somehow found out that Peter Parker was kind of, sort of responsible for it, because she died in a battle between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin. And then he cloned her, and he cloned him, and he made Ben Reilly, and he made Kane, and Chasm, and all these guys, all part of the over 50-year history of Spider-Man and his amazing clones. There is, if you Google it, there is a 24-part article called The Life of Riley, R-E-I-L-L-Y, Life of Riley. I gave it that title. It was originally published on a website that I published called Comic Book Galaxy. It was written by two guys, Andrew Golitz and Glenn Greenberg, who basically did a 24-part oral history of the entire Clone Saga from 1974 up until it ended in the mid to late 90s. The saga just took over the comics, the Spider-Man comics, for almost the whole decade of the 90s, and pretty much destroyed Spider-Man as a viable storytelling universe for a while, until I think Dan Slott came along and finally was able to kind of pull things back together and make it a viable place to tell stories again. But for a long time, the Clone Saga really had a terrible stink on it, and a lot of people to this day still hold it in contempt. I think it was a lot of fun. It was far from perfect, and there were a lot of terrible comic books. If there were, I'm going to guess that there were probably at least 500 issues, because there were probably 4 Spider-Man comics being published every month at the time in the 90s. So between the original saga in the 70s and the Clone Saga in the 90s, there was probably somewhere between 300 and 500 individual issues that were individual chapters of the Clone Saga story. And let's just be conservative and say it was 300. If there were 300 1990s Clone Saga comic books, probably 50 of them were actually good stories. There was a lot of good stuff by J.M. DeMatteis. There was a lot of good stuff that was drawn by John Romita Jr. or Gil Kane or Dan. I love the Dan Jurgens Sensational Spider-Man run. It's only 7 issues, counting the 0 issue, but it's absolutely stunning how beautiful it is. Inked by Klaus Janson all the way through it. Jurgens, inked by Klaus Janson, is one of the best superhero art teams ever. And again, it only lasted 7 issues, but man, those comics look good. So there are things to recommend about the Clone Saga, but the thing in my collection at this late date that remains is just I have quite a few figures in my collection that tie directly to the Clone Saga, and this is most of them right here. And so, Dr. Witty Banter, I just wanted to extrapolate a little bit more on my brief mention of the Clone Saga and of Ben Reilly. There are many more figures that I wish that I had here to show you. I don't have any more. The retro Scarlet Spider from, I think, 2017 or 2018 from the Marvel Superheroes Wave 2, the metallic-looking one that came with the blonde Ben Reilly head. That was going for a lot of money at one point, and I stupidly sold it off. I would give almost anything to have that Ben Reilly head back.